You can slowly open your eyes. And it looks like Alana and, hi Alana, and Juana, is that how you say your name?
Juana. Juana.
Spelled like mine, but I have a G and you have a J. All right, so we're gonna dive in, everyone. So just make sure you're comfortable, whatever that means for you. You can even be curled up in bed. And we invite you to have your notifications turned off so that you can really dive in together and we can all be connected. And try to keep yourself muted because sometimes noises happen in the background that we aren't aware of that can influence the group. And we will have Q&A at the end. And most likely we'll probably, if you have a question, it'll probably start to be answered. But if you have a question, you can just type it in the chat and we will see it. And the video will be recorded so you can watch it later. And we've got some great bonuses for you that you'll get this evening. And which I'm very excited about. It's some really precious tools that have just served me so much over the decades. And then if you need to go to the restroom, just go whenever you need to. Just slip away. We will have an official bathroom break halfway through, so if you don't want to miss anything. And have your journal so you can take notes. You're going to get a lot of wisdom. And also have your object with you. So if there's anything you need or you need some snacks or beverages, now is a good time to get it. And if you have your video on now, let's say, I'm going to be really like transparent here. I've done a lot of group calls like this as a participant and a leader. And so sometimes if I have to use the bathroom as a participant, I'll bring the call into the bathroom with me, but I turn off my video and mute, and no one knows what I'm doing, but that way I don't miss anything. So if that helps you. Yeah. All right, anything you want to add, Katya?
No, I know that there are some folks here today that are, you know, their video's off, their audio's off, and they're just taking care of themselves because that's what they need to be doing. And I honor that, and we feel you. Your seat is totally held, and thank you for being with us. So. Yes.
All right, well, I'm going to start and tell you my story of how I first realized that I'm connected to the moon. I was about 19 and I was living in Northern California in the Redwoods. And I was just dramatic and passionate. And I would have these phases of loving my work and my boyfriend and where I lived. And then these phases where I couldn't stand it all. And I wanted to break up with my boyfriend and quit my job and leave California. And so I started meditating and eating a macrobiotic diet and doing yoga and just trying to be more calm and centered. But it was just this ebb and flow, right? Until one day a friend of mine who's an older, wiser woman was like, you know, have you noticed that you tend to go through these different cycles based on the full moon and the new moon. And that's usually when you want to break up with your boyfriend. It's usually around the new moon. And when you want to quit your job and leave. And I was so offended by this. So I was like, no way, my feelings are real. My problems are real. It is not the moon. And I was pretty annoyed by that. But then she said, well, you know, why don't you just on a calendar start tracking your mood every day and your menstrual cycle and just see if there's a pattern there. And there was. And it was so amazing. I tracked my mood and my emotions for every day for 6 months. And I saw this amazing pattern that's been pretty consistent to this day. And you'll learn more about what tends to be typical for most of us in the call. And then I've just tracked it in people around me, with clients I've worked with over the years, with friends and family. Even someone I was talking to today was having a really difficult day. And I said, well, you know, the moon is full. And they're like, well, I've lived through many full moons and this was never it. And da-da-da. I'm like, well, it's not that the moon makes you a certain way. It can amplify whatever's already happening. So that's, yeah, one of the ways that I first learned about it. And now I really pay a lot of attention. And then also, since Katya and I have been collaborating on this class together, particularly very close to the last month, we both have been sharing and paying a lot of attention to each moon phase and how it's affecting our ability to do certain tasks for this call and market. And when it felt really easy to get the word out, and when it was so hard, it was like, oh, I don't want to do it, versus just flowing out. And it was all very connected, and even more insights too. So it's just continual layers of growth and understanding, and really a lot of trust and acceptance of like whatever you're feeling, some existential despair or some wild glee or whatever it is in between, is just part of the human journey.
Absolutely. And I love how, so thank you, Tauna. That that's a beautiful story of how the moon as it is in transit, and that's a cycle that's always continuing, right? We're always, every 29 or so days, right? We go through this cycle again and again and again, and we all experience all the phases. And along with that, and that's a big part of what we're going to be diving into today, and how we can align with that and understand those phases better. And I have a story to share as well. And this story is a story that will touch on a different layer, the other layer that we're going to be talking about today. And that layer, you'll understand through the story. So this is a story about a man who was born in Russia, and it was then the Soviet Union. So this man was very young when he had kids. So he had a family by the time he was 20 even. And he was always looking for ways to support his family, but he was unfortunately not drawn to any one profession. He would try different things, and he saw the people around him, choosing a profession, choosing a career, and going off on that path. And it never resonated for him. He didn't feel a resonance with any career path, which it's not for lack of trying. Okay. And then when he was 30 years old, he moved his family to the United States, and they moved to New York City, and they, now the pressure was really on to support his family. They had very little when they arrived, and he tried different things, tried odd jobs, and then he realized that he was living in a capitalist country, so he could finally, he decided, why not make use of that? And he took his passions, which he had things that he felt passionate about, and he decided to start a business. And in fact, he started 2 businesses. And the first business was a meditation center, a center for deep reflection and spirituality, spiritual practice, non-denominational spiritual practice. And he started that, and not even 2 years later, it tanked, and he lost all of his money, all of the family's money. So he fell down. A few years later, he dusted himself off, got back up again, and decided to try again. Another one of his passions was healthy living and healthy lifestyles. So he decided to start a takeout health food place in New York City before it was the norm in this country, before it was accepted, right? And so he started this health food place and poured so much of his heart into it. Alas, a few years later, it also went bankrupt, and the business went under. He lost all the family's money. They were in debt. And this man is my father. And because I've spoken with him regularly in my life, I know that he, for many years, lived under a crushing sense of failure about this project, about his projects not having come to fruition. And a while back, as an astrologer, as I started studying the moon phases, I learned that he was born, I was very awed to learn that he was born under a moon phase, under which, as you'll learn later, you'll see, external achievement in this world is actually not at all part of that soul's journey. In fact, it's more of a distraction than anything else. And when I started to see him and his life path in this way, I realized that instead of a failure, he's actually been an incredible success. And it took that shift in perception for me from the external yardstick that we're taught in our culture to seeing life through the soul journey. And when I started to realize that and look around at the soul journeys that others were on, and when I saw their charts, I realized that most of us have a soul journey that's different somewhat than or vary from the external goals that were put upon us through our conditioning, or what we've been told we should aim toward. And that many of us who feel like we're unsuccessful are actually, in fact, very successful. And so this got me looking at the moon phase that we were born under, which greatly affects our personality, how we express in the world, our soul's intentions, and our karmic history. Tells us about our karmic history. So that's the other layer that we will be exploring very deeply today. So before we go further, we wanted to just give you a sort of goal and intention that we can all hold for the class that Tauna and I are holding. And then Tauna will go into the actual agenda items that, how class will go today, the flow that we'll go through. So let me start with the goal. So the goal of our class today is so much more than just intellectual knowledge. Although you'll have some of that, and taking notes, if you're a note taker, that's lovely. Really what we aim toward is a rewiring. We hope to rewire ourselves, as Tauna and I have done very much in the last few weeks doing this intensive work, to really see ourselves not so much anymore in the linear model, that's the model that's presented in most of our, or many of our cultures today, the dominant mainstream cultures, not in a linear way where we expect the same kinds of behaviors and energy from ourselves all the time, but in very much a cyclical way, so that we approach ourselves as cyclical beings and have strength and empowerment in that, even as we interface with a society that does not yet know that or acknowledge that or come toward us with that, so that we can have it, feel it in ourselves, stay strong in that, living with the cycles, and also that we can eventually, if it feels right for us, demonstrate it for others just by example, and thereby empower our global family. So that's our goal.
Yay! I know it's been so healing for me, and I can't even tell all of you how excited Katya and I have been to share this with all of you. So our agenda for today, so you know what to expect, is we are going to have a little introduction with the object that we asked you to bring. We're going to do some journal prompts so you can already see the wisdom that you already have in terms of your connection that is already established with the moon, even if you don't realize it. And then we're going to do some little breakout groups of just a few minutes each, so that you can meet each other and then share a little bit of what some highlights are. And then Katya is going to share the waxing moon phases and how it can affect you if that was the moon phase you were born under, and how it affects you, because it moves through that sign every month. So every month you touch that moon phase. And then I'm going to share a treasure chest of self-care tools for the waxing phase, so that you can really align and harmonize with that time and get the most out of it, rather than resist it or fight it or even suffer. And then we will take a bathroom break. And then we'll do the waning moon phases and the waning moon self-care tools. And we'll do another little breakout group, because at this point you probably may have ingested a lot of information, and it can be great to just articulate it and listen and share to integrate it even deeper. And then we're going to do the 6 senses meditation. This is very easy meditation in terms of if you're someone who's meditated before and you feel like it's hard, this is actually really luscious. And then we will do another reconnection with our sacred object. And then we will do a little closing and have some Q&A. So if anyone has any questions or concerns, just go ahead and type them in the box. And if it all sounds good, you can even type, sounds good.
Yep. Whenever you type anything in that chat box, everyone will see it. But you can choose on the bottom right, you can actually choose in your participants menu to type the message to just Tauna or I. So,
yeah, and we'll see it.
And we'll see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, I hope everyone has remembered to bring an object of some kind of we're calling it the sacred object. What it really matters is that it feels like something that can be sacred to you. There's no right or wrong in this. And what this really is, what we're doing with this is it's very much based on a very kind of practical psychology of association. So this is an object that we're using to help us ground what we learned today in our knowing. And what we'll do is, what I'll invite you to do is have it with you. So have it, you can have it just somewhere where you can see it, or you can be holding it. Really, I have this little piece of green calcite and I'm just holding it. You can also just put it somewhere on your body, like on your thigh, or if you have a necklace or a pendant, you can wear it. And we'll be working with it somewhat toward the end of class, but really for most of class, you're just keeping it with you so that it also absorbs your experience here. And then later on after class, I'll invite you to put it somewhere where you'll see it. And I'll say this again, I'll repeat it, so that as you encounter it, it will remind you, it will give you a mental cue to deepen this information in your cells. So you can just take a moment and have your sacred object, just acknowledge that that's with you, and then decide where you want to have it. Okay.
And if you feel inspired, you're welcome to type in the chat box what you brought. And if it's private, it's of course completely beautiful. So I'll just type mine here.
I brought my crystal. Kirsten brought her crystal.
Nice.
Anna brought her mala. And we're hearing that everything sounds good. So awesome. Thanks, you guys. Rose quartz angel, Juana. Ooh. Beautiful. Nice. And Heather brought an amethyst rock. Amethyst is so powerful.
Yes. Oh, that was Sapna, I think, who brought the amethyst.
Oh, okay. Sapna, sorry.
Tiffany, my sister, I hope it's okay to say that. I love you. Ah, a mandala that she painted teal. Nice.
Yay.
All right, so next we're going to do some journaling prompts. So go ahead and grab your journal. So if you're here, it's because you probably already have noticed some connection to the moon or some connection to your own cyclical cycles of expansion and contraction, and a desire to be more connected to those and understand them more. And so you already have a lot of wisdom in yourself. And one thing I've been thinking a lot about the last 2 days is I've been looking at that bright full moon and feeling it in my bones, and then remembering hearing that we're all made of stardust, right? That actually, I think, have you heard this? And I wish I had looked it up to articulate it really well, that all the planets and asteroids were banging around together millions and millions of years ago, and it formed planet Earth, and it formed all carbon and hydrogen and all these different molecules, and that's what we turned into. So we are made of the cosmos. So we are part moon. So the first prompt for you to reflect on is to just go ahead and take a moment to close your eyes And visualize the full moon, which might be especially easy to do because it's full right now, and you may have seen it the last few nights or even noticed it today in the sky. And just take a moment to remember all the other times you've seen the full moon. Like the first time when you were a little kid and you're like, what is that? Why is it following me? To different experiences you've had in your life. And the full moon is also connected to ovulation. So if you're having a menstrual cycle or had one, you can reflect back on what ovulation feels like. And then for the next few minutes, we invite you to just write down some of these experiences and memories you had, and to remember, how did you feel during those periods of the full moon or ovulation? What were you needing? What felt good? What didn't feel so great that you wished had happened instead, or that you had done instead? So go ahead and start writing, and Katya, feel free to add anything too.
It sounds great.
Great. So we'll have about 3 minutes here, and to just know that you can come back to this and finish it too. Got about a minute left, and you can just notice, how do you feel at those times? Did you want to be out in the world and social? Did you want to be at home? Did your sleep change? Did you feel big or small, shiny and light or heavy? And even just the moments of, sitting in a forest or the woods or at home and looking out your window at the moon. So then you can just go ahead and wrap up for now, and know that you can always revisit this. And then we're going to go ahead and close our eyes again. Feel that fullness of the moon and what it felt to have those memories and writing about those times. And then now we're going to shift to the new moon, to the dark moon, when the sky is dark and the stars are out. This is often also a similar energy associated with when you have your menses, when you're bleeding. Just note how that feels in your body, and what do you need during those times, and how do you feel? Is it different than the full moon, or is it the same? like, what is it that you need? What do you feel? And you can perhaps look back, and if you don't quite remember when the new moon really happened, maybe you haven't tracked it or noticed it, it's okay, but just kind of reflect perhaps on times when you had your menstrual cycle or bleeding. Did you have anything to add to that, Katya?
No. No, that sounds great.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you can all go ahead and start reflecting on that. Times when the moon was new and the sky was dark and the stars were out or you were bleeding, what you typically feel and need.
Unmute. When you grab the phone to do something, it muted it.
So now we're behind, right? Boy, my phone is hot.
We're hearing a little bit of background noise, so if you can just look and make sure you're muted at the bottom left of your screen. You can always unmute yourself in the sharing portions.
All right, so our time is up there. And go ahead and we're gonna do one more prompt. Go ahead and close your eyes and just tune into how did that feel? We went from the big bright full moon to the dark new moon, and we went from ovulating to menstruating and bleeding. And I also just want to mention for those of you, and I should have said this early, my apologies, who are watching the recording who are male and don't have a menstrual cycle, you can also reflect back on women in your life if you were aware of their menstruation or not, and also just focus on the full moon or the new moon. So for the next prompt, we're just going to be focusing on this whole concept of being a cyclical being, right? We have these periods we want to be out in the world and we feel really shiny and bright, and these periods we just want to be home, we don't want to talk to anyone. We have these in-between periods where we want to tackle a project or we don't want to do anything. And the seasons influence us too. It's so different when it's snowing and cold out versus it's a long summer day. And then we have other cycles too, you know, in addition to the moon and menstruation and the seasons. So take a few minutes to just write about how you feel. Like, do you have this idea that you should always be a certain way, like calm and steady? Do you have an affinity for one phase over the other? Like, do you prefer the expansion and the contraction? Like, I always feel like I'm myself when I feel really shiny and bright. And when I want to hide from the world and sleep in, I feel like, oh, something's wrong. I have to fix myself. So just take a look at that. And yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Katya?
Just that we all have our own cycles, and there we may have not named something. There might be another polarity. It might not be internal or, you know, extroverted, introverted, or, you know, low energy or high energy. Maybe something else that we haven't named, but a cycle that you feel yourself going through. And maybe that part of it has gone into the shadows because when you start to feel a certain way, perhaps you overcompensate by, you know, if you don't like feeling low energy, for instance, drinking coffee or doing something to avoid that state of being. So whatever cycle that is for you, and see if you can just challenge yourself or stretch yourself to include any areas that, you know, you may not feel comfortable with, as Tauna said, and also include them in your writing.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Yes. All right, so we've got about another minute left. So you just keep writing back on how you feel about these different cycles. What story do you have about them? What are the shoulds? What are the desires?
And if you get stuck, you can always ask, go use one of the cycles of nature as a reference point, be it the seasons, be it the moon, be it a menstrual cycle.
right? We can start wrapping up now and know that you can always go back to this, and you'll probably have some more insights after this call and in the coming moons as you start paying more attention and perhaps having more allowance for whatever and however you're flowing. So let's just take a moment and give ourselves a little stretch. So you can just, yes, Sapna, exactly. Lift your arms up, expand like the full moon. And exhale, give yourself a hug, let your head drop, whatever's comfortable. Inhale, expand up and out, like the full moon. And then exhale, bring yourself down. And also just stretch whatever your body's needing right now. And we'll do one more stretch together, whatever feels good for you. And exhale.
All right. So now, my friends, we are going to break out into some little groups of 2, and we're not going to spend too long here. But what we'd love for you to do is just in a intimate space with just one other participant, to have the chance to share on some of your journaling so that you can really anchor it. So what we're going to do and how this works is that we're going to, in a moment here, put you into breakout groups, and what you'll see is a little pop-up on your screen where it asks you, it'll say you're being invited to a breakout room, and you either accept it or cancel it. So we'll ask that you accept it. If you absolutely don't want to be in a breakout room, that's fine, just cancel that, and we'll pair everyone up differently. We'll adjust for that. So that's fine if you don't want to be in a breakout group. But we'll do that, and then you'll have 3 minutes for each person to share. So you can decide who goes first, and at 3 minutes, we'll give you a message. You'll see a message on your screen that says it's time to switch, so you'll switch. And then at the end of 6 minutes, you'll see a little countdown on your screen that says in a minute, you'll be brought back into the main room. Okay, so if you have a question about that, just go ahead and type it in the chat box. Okay, so I think we are good to go. So Jeremy, you can go ahead. Jeremy's our Wizard of Oz. You can go ahead and start the breakout rooms.
So if you're not seeing your pop-up, you might just look at your phone or your laptop, see if you don't see it or not. Like I still see Jean, my mom. Hi, Mom. And Jen.
Anna's mom, yay.
Yeah, that's my mama.
And Jen and Juana now. So did you guys, is anyone having a problem with their breakout room? If you just don't want to be in one, that's fine. But if you're having a problem with getting on, then message us, or you can even just unmute yourself and say so.
And
oh, so Juana says she got in, but nobody was there. Okay. Jeremy, did you hear that?
then Jen, you actually pushed later.
Oh, haha.
So easy to do something like that.
Yeah, I'll just say that if you missed your chance to join the breakout room, you can still get there. On your toolbar, there's a little breakout room button. You can
Oh, okay.
go back and join again. So maybe
Oh, okay.
everyone just try that.
Or maybe we can pair up or put these.
Or maybe if the technology is being a little tricky on people's end, maybe people can just, if they want, share in the chat box.
Could do. Juana went away, so I think she may be paired up with someone. Can we pair up Jean and Jen?
Okay, let me see if I can do that. Hold on.
Thank you. And if you guys get in your breakout group, just take 2 minutes each instead. Sorry about the technical issues.
Okay, Jean, I moved you to a different breakout room. Can you see the little pop-up to join it? She's not seeing it.
She's muted and she doesn't see it.
I don't want to be in a breakout room.
Oh, Jean doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Can we pair up Juana and Jen then?
Thanks.
They were originally paired with each other. Yeah, I think.
Oh, okay, they were, and that's what. Okay, that's what happened then.
I think Jen wasn't getting in there for some reason.
That's okay.
You
Yeah.
guys can chat here if you want.
Can we just, yeah. So Jen, do you see on the bottom of your toolbar a prompt that you can go back into the breakout room, or an option to go back? Okay, looks like Jen is in there, so let's pair up Juana with Jen and get her in there. Okay, yay.
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 Oh,
Wow. So this is when we would switch. Do we want to switch them now? Give them an extra minute?
yeah, because there are a few other people. Maybe let them switch, but then let Jen and Juana know that
Yeah,
they have their own time.
okay. Jeremy, honey, will you type a broadcast message to them that says, thank you so much.
I'm gonna stand up and stretch.
Yeah, let's do it. Woo. Mm. So is Jen Vedika Global? Is that Jen? Okay, that's good. I was wondering who that was.
Yeah, she works for this really cool Ayurvedic Vaidya, a woman from India named Acharya Shunya.
Awesome.
Yes, and I designed their logo for them last week.
Oh, that's right. I remember that. I'm just gonna stoke the fire here a bit. It's funny that Tauna, you're in Mexico, and I am in Colorado, where I know Jean is too, right?
No, actually, my mom is a few blocks away here in Mexico.
Oh, right. That's right. I knew that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it is snowing here.
Wow.
It's a blizzard.
Crazy.
I
Looks like
know.
it's snow all week.
Okay, so I think we're probably time to give a little warning, right? And come back
Yeah.
to the main room.
Mom, I just sent you a little chat, little message.
In the breakout rooms then? Yes, I should end the rooms?
Yes, honey. Let's end the rooms.
Okay, it'll give them 1 minute starting now.
Thank you. Yay. Hi, Lana.
Hi, Tiffany.
Your beautiful face. Oh, Tiffany's back. Okay, we're coming back. Yay, Kirsten's back. Awesome. Okay. Coming back. And if you would like to start, well, maybe we'll wait until everyone's back before we say that. Okay. Wow. Heather. Oh, Heather. Yay. We can see your beautiful face. Yay. Juana's back and Jen's back and Sapna's back. Okay. So I think if anyone, I hope those breakout groups were a fruitful place for you to share and bring some things into our space here. And if you heard something or said something that you'd really like to share, please share it in the chat box and we'll all see it if you just choose everyone. Oh, goodness. Okay.
Alana, it looks like maybe you shared your screen.
I don't know how to get off of here.
I was wondering what happened. I thought
I
that
don't
was.
know what to do. I don't know what I did.
Oh, okay. So if you have it, just hover your mouse over your screen. It'll say stop share. So
Oh.
just when you see stop share, yay. Thank
Did
you.
it work?
Okay.
Oh,
It worked. We're back.
okay. Sorry.
No worries. Okay. So we're not really getting anything in the chat box. Oh, Alana, you're sharing your screen again.
Oh, you know what? I bet it's because Alana, because the button is next to the chat. Are you trying to click the chat button?
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You can also just
Totally.
unmute yourself if you want to share it verbally.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Okay.
You
Well,
wanna-
let's move on then. Oh, this is the really exciting part. Katya's going to share about the waxing moon phases. I've been paying attention to these for years and reading about them, and I got so many new layers of knowledge from Katya when we were prepping for this. And it was really amazing to hear what my moon phase is, which is the waxing gibbous, because it was so spot on that my mind was blown, because I've always thought of myself as like my sun sign or my Ayurvedic body type or the Enneagram, but to think of the moon phase and how accurate it was, and it's been really helpful for me the last few weeks to understand myself even more. And then also to be paying attention to myself and people around me as we cycle through. So this is when you're going to want your journal out so you can take notes, and also know that you can watch the recording too. If you come back and you don't catch everything, just know that the recording will be there for you. So go ahead, Katya. Let's hear those waxing moon phases.
Yes, thank you, Tauna. That's right. It's gonna be a lot, but just like Tauna said, you'll get the recording to go back to it. So before we begin, I want to say a couple things. One is that this is the this is the portion of the class for which you'll want to remember what your moon phase is. So I sent everyone an email or a message that said what your moon phase is. So please have that handy, because when I talk about your moon phase, you'll really want to prick your ears, because it's about you and your soul journey. And the other thing is that these do relate with the menstrual cycles. So if you're interested in understanding your menstrual cycles better than, or menstrual cycles in general better, then the new moon relates with menstruation, and the full moon relates with ovulation, and then everything in between also relates with the chunks, the phases of the menstrual cycle as well. So you can be thinking in terms of your menstrual cycle as well. Now, the last thing I wanted to say is that I know that we've got some folks that are either, you know, Vedic astrologers or interested in Vedic astrology here. I am not a Vedic astrologer. And it's funny enough, because Tauna and I work together. I am a Western trained astrologer who uses the tropical zodiac. What I have seen is that both the tropical and the sidereal zodiac work. It's just like asking, does the Enneagram work or does numerology work? They both work. They're different lenses. They both have so much to share with each other. So just know that that's the lens I'm coming from. Okay, so let's start. It's story time. Put yourself in that mode. So let's begin at the new moon. The new moon is where we are in total darkness, right? So we're talking about the 8 phases of the moon. We're breaking up this pie of the moon cycle into 8 slices, and each one will last about 3.5 days. So when we're talking first about the new moon, the moment of its exactness, when everything is dark. You may have never noticed this phase in your life because you don't see a moon. And if you go outside, it's pitch black. Sometimes, you know, depending on your vision, you can't even see your hand if your arm is extended away from you. So you can imagine that if you were an ancient person, you know, living in a very different time from now, when you walked outside, it would be a very inky black experience. Now, symbolically, this is symbolizing the dark earth, the soil from which all is born, or source, okay? So we're talking now we're gonna start to talk about not just the exactness of the new moon, but the 3.5 days after the new moon. So the new moon is exact, which means the moon is conjunct the sun. And after that moment, for about 1.5 days, it's black. You still don't see any moon until about 1.5 days later, you see a little sliver of it come out in the sky. And then we're still in the new moon phase, technically, for another 1.5, 2 days. So that 3.5 days or so symbolizes the like that moment, the black soil itself, and then that moment when the seed just starts to sprout. And what do we feel when we see that first sprout? It touches us. We feel that sense of a miracle. Every time, right? Now, people that are born in this phase, it's really interesting, and we have this represented. We have this represented in our group today. People that are born under this phase are very in touch with source. They're coming from source. And we're already in the waxing phase, or the waxing part of the cycle, half of the cycle. So they're connected with source, number one, and that's paired with this outrushing desire to incarnate, to make their energy felt in the world, to know what it's like to be in this physical body. So these people, they're very otherworldly. They're very otherworldly, and they have this gleam about them, like they know something. You know that they know, but it's probably something that they could never really put into words, but they just came from counsel with the divine. So they can be a little hard to get close to. And it's not because a part of them is missing, a part of their humanity is missing. It's because a part of their humanity is just elsewhere. It's still there with source. So if you're trying to get to know someone like this and you just feel like it's not working, it's not because they're not, they don't want to get close to you. It's because part of them really is closer to the divine than it is to people. And the artist Georgia O'Keeffe was born under this moon phase. And she, you know, she brought these exquisite creations to our world, these exquisite flowers, among other things. And she was infamously very hard to get close to. She was aloof. People thought she was full of herself. But being born under the new moon phase really puts that into a different perspective. Now, for all these phases, let's talk about the shadow side of how this can express. Now, the shadow side of how this moon phase can express is a kind of naivete about the world, not really understanding how it works yet, and being kind of blundering a little bit as you walk through it, but also a sort of subjectivity where we mistake feelings for facts. And the other shadow side of it is because new moon people are very archetypal, they feel very archetypal themselves. Human beings. So sometimes it's hard for them to really relate that another person has the full spectrum of human emotions, and that we need to honor that and respect that. So that's another shadow manifestation. And let's talk also about why someone might want to be born under this moon phase and choose to be born from their higher self, choose to be born into this moon phase. Well, one possibility is that they, typically they're just beginning something, a phase of learning something on their journey. They're just beginning something. But the other thing is that they, in past lives, may have been overly grounded or overly kind of limited by logic. So in this lifetime, born under the new moon phase, it's really a great remedy that will make sure that they stay connected to source. And the last thing that may have happened in a past lifetime is they may have sacrificed themselves too much in relationship with other people for their obligations, etc. And in this lifetime, they're like, I want to be closer to source than to relationships. That's really where my focus is. It's important for me to stay close to that more than anything else. They're very iconic, these people. Richard Branson is also an example. So let's move now to phase 2. And as Tauna said, we're all going to feel all of these at the different parts of the lunar month. So the first 3.5 days, we're all going to be more connected to source. We're all going to be more connected to that seed, that initial inspiration. But it's not going to be out in the world yet. Phase 2. In phase 2, we're moving from the dark new moon to that beautiful waxing crescent. So when you go outside, you'll see that beautiful waxing moon hanging in the sky. It's still dark. It's still dark outside. You can't really see by it, but she's gorgeous. She's like a goddess. She's like, here I am, right? And now we're going into this phase where we're still connected to source. We're still in the dark, more connected to source than humanity, but there's a huge urgency to now bringing this intention, this seed, this inspiration into earth. There's more of that incarnating, focus on incarnating. Now so we're going to start to feel it in this phase, all of us, right? Whatever intention we made at the new moon, consciously or unconsciously, we're going to start to feel like, now I need to bring it out, do something about it. These people have a huge drive to accomplish and experience. They have a hunger about them. They can be very extremist. They can have an urgency, like I have a mission and there's no time to waste. Okay, this is the moon phase I was born under. And my partner who is on this call, it's funny because he will say to me, why do you work all the time? why are you so, I think my drivenness goes into a shadow side a little bit. And, if he didn't understand my moon phase, that could be, a bit of a problem. But really it's because I have this archetypal, it's still archetypal, it's still iconic, but it's like, I need to get out there. I need to make this real. Now, the thing about these people, they have a radiant and infectious hope in the face of darkness. So Anne Frank. Anne Frank was born under this moon phase, okay? And we know about her that she maintained her optimism even in the most horrifying conditions. Anais Nin was also born in this moon phase. These people are full of possibility, but the thing about them is it can be very hard for them because they're still not really understanding of how things work in the world to make their vision real, so they need a lot of support. And if you know someone like this that has a beautiful vision, it's almost like the teenager, right? The adolescent that's like so idealistic, but they don't really know what the world works like yet. So if you know someone like this, support them, because likely their vision is very precious, but without your help, without the help of others, they won't be able to actually make it real. The shadow of this can be like a kind of neurotic compulsiveness. That drive can be focused on things that aren't that important, like cleaning, or, it can be misplaced. These people can also have a real hard time focusing on anything or following through with anything that isn't emotionally gripping them or alive for them at the moment. So they can really peter out on things. And, in past lives, why you would incarnate into this phase is that for some reason this person was not able to live their dreams in previous lifetimes, either because maybe they were just lazy, but more likely they were born into a culture where they were marginalized or they didn't have a lot of opportunities. And, they were just, their hands were tied because of their circumstance. And now this time they're like, no matter what, I'm going to make this real. Phase 3. Okay, so we all feel that drive at some point, that second phase of the moon cycle. Phase 3, the first quarter. Okay, so at the first quarter moon, we see that half moon in the sky. And what's going to happen, a lot of people don't know this, but if you tune in and start to track it for yourself, I believe, I trust that you'll see this in your own life too. There's a test. Some kind of a test happens, and you'll understand why. There's something that you have to break through in order to continue with your vision, something that you have to overcome, some way that you have to get stronger. We call this phase the crusader archetypally, because this person, so we've moved through this part where we were carrying the vision, but we were kind of weirdos, and the world really didn't accept our vision yet. Now we're moving from the dark into the light, and this is where the vision, my fist, hits the reality of what things are like right now. And there's usually some resistance, right? Even in our own lives, if we want to make a change in our lives and our intention is like, okay, now I'm going to eat better or whatever. But then the first quarter moon hits and it's like, are you really? Because you have all these habits. And there's the momentum of those habits. And so there's a test that we're put to. The rubber really meets the road. We're going out from the darkness into the light. This is like the birth moment. Now, these people that are born under this moon phase, like I said, we all go through that feeling, but people that are born under this moon phase, they carry it always. And they are the people that it's their job to bring something new into this world, and that's not an easy task because of all the resistance they're going to hit. Nelson Mandela was born under this moon phase. Okay, so these are the people that are really challenged to stand up for something, even at the risk of sacrificing themselves, even at the risk of death sometimes. And, that can feel like a scary thing. Who would want to be born under that moon phase? But at the same time, if you think about it, where would we be without these people that are willing to risk their lives? What they really sometimes do need to learn, and this is kind of going into the shadow, is that they sometimes have such a strong sense of what they're, what they need to bring out into the world that they're uncompromising. What they need to learn is that other people can have meaningful contributions. Their ideas can actually help augment and enrich their vision. And so they need to start allowing others to inform and make better their own vision. The shadow side can really be self-righteousness and the need to make others wrong. They can romanticize martyrdom. And, instead of focusing on the actual cause, they can focus on the martyrdom itself, which of course doesn't help anybody. So why would someone want to be born under this phase? Well, there are two possibilities. One is that they martyred themselves in a past life unnecessarily, or too much, to an extreme. They died for something, they didn't have to die for, or something. And they created a sort of karmic cycle. When we react to something emotionally very strongly, it draws that karma back to us. So that could have been a way that they created it, and this lifetime it's a time to make it right. The other possibility is that they failed to stand up for something. They failed to really have that spine, and so this time around they're really tasked to stand up for whatever cause it is that they're here to stand up for. JFK, Timothy Leary were also born under this moon phase, the Crusader, and we have that represented. A few different people in this class. Okay, so we're still in the waxing phase. The waxing phase is going toward manifestation, toward visibility, toward creation in the world. Now we move to phase 4, which is the waxing gibbous. The waxing gibbous is the phase where we are now, the moon is more than half full, and it's those 3.5 days in which, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the moon goes from being just a little more than half full to being fully full really quickly, right? Like you look up in the sky and you're like, oh, the moon's a little more than full. And then like 2 days later, it's like, whoa, there it is. And this is the time we're talking about. It happens in that time frame. Now, this is a time when we're fully in the light. So we're not so connected with source anymore. That vision, initial vision, is already kind of being watered down some, and we're going toward more. We're more in the relationship with humanity, more in the relationship with others and life on the earth. This archetype is called the helper or the lover, and it is Tauna's moon phase that she was born under. So these people are amazing at collaboration. They thrive when they work with other people. And the most amazing thing I realized when I started working with Tauna is that, holy smokes, things are so much easier than when I work by myself. I've collaborated with others before, but with Tauna, it was really, really apparent. And everything just started flowing more easily, and together we were so much greater than the sum of our parts. And at first I thought it was just our chemistry, which I still credit a lot to that, but then I realized Tauna's a waxing gibbous phase, so that makes sense for her. Co-creation, collaboration, having a good rapport with your audience. These people already know what the last phase people needed to learn, which is that our ideas are better when they're, when they're pollinated by many different views and perspectives. Now, the thing about being in this moon phase is that, like I said, that original vision has to be, we realize that we have to compromise it some. Right? No longer are we stuck like the new moon person or the waxing crescent or even the first quarter person in this idea that it has to be that original vision. We realize that if we're going to bring out something in the world, it's going to have to be compromised somewhat. It's going to change as a result of the process. And that can also go into some of the shadow of these people, because they can over-compromise themselves. They can give themselves away too much. They can give their original vision away too much and kind of be like, what? how did I find myself here? They can get into contracts that they didn't really know what they were signing up for. They can be a little indiscriminate sometimes. You know, they can get into contracts that aren't really good for them. This is also representing, you know, sexual energy. These people are very sexual, you know, because in that archetypally, sexuality is a way to bond with others. It's a way to, you know, deepen our relationships. So we're talking about the archetypal kind of potential of sexuality here. And I picked Marvin Gaye as the model for, you know, this moon phase because he was born under this moon phase, in fact, and he is famous for the song Sexual Healing. And I just love that. Heather's chuckling. Heather's laughing with me because it's just, you know, it's just so uncanny how that happens. If you watch the video for that song, it's amazing. Okay, now we've talked about the waxing phase, and that really brings us all the way to the full moon. And at this point, I will hand it over to Tauna, who will ground this in some Ayurvedic tools and wisdom for us.
I've heard Katya talk about this a few times, and I have notes from when we did our run through. I mean, pages, like, and I keep adding to it every time I hear it. And it's gonna be so fun to hear from you all later if you connected to your moon phase, or if you look back through previous moon cycles that you resonate with each one on some level, because everything Katya said about the waxing gibbous moon, which is my moon phase, feels like it should just say Tauna is, and if there's any other waxing gibbous in here, maybe you're feeling that or about your moon phase too. So in your bonuses, which you will get after the call, you're going to get a PDF, and one of the pages in the PDF is this little, simple little kind of like poster of waxing self-care and waning self-care that I would invite you to print out and post somewhere where you're going to see it every day, like your bathroom or your kitchen, to remind yourself, especially until it starts to become automatic and in your bones, so to speak. And so this sheet has little bullet points for you. So as you're taking notes, don't worry if you miss something, because there will be a little reminder here. So during the waxing moon, you know, we have this sense of going from that dark, dark inward moon to expanding, expanding, expanding. And during this phase, we have the support from nature of going forth into the world, of being that seed that is growing and becoming big. We're turning into like a tree or a blooming flower with our fruits. And so not only do we have the support of nature for this time of what we want to bring forth into the world and what we want to accomplish and grow and be seen, like the moon is visible, is we can also support this time as well. So if you like to journal, I would invite you to do some journaling during the waxing phases about what is it that you want in your life. What are you wanting to create? What are your visions? So often we're caught up in our little, like, I have to go to work and clean the house and make some food, that we're forgetting to allow ourselves to really focus on what we want to create. And this is also a good time to be really thinking about goals you're wanting to reach and to break them into nice little morsels that you can accomplish that feel very approachable and inviting and accessible. And it's also a good time to really make some of those big plans, because you're going to have the support of the moon to do that. Like if you're wanting to change your diet or start exercising more, or you want to tackle something at the home or work, this is a good time to do it, a good time to vision what you want that end result to be and what you want all the little steps to be. And in terms of a meditation practice, it's great to embrace a meditation practice, but often during the waxing phases, especially as the moon gets brighter and brighter, a traditional practice of being quiet with your eyes closed and meditating can feel very difficult and even almost torturous. Like I was trying to meditate last night with the full moon. I was like, I can't. And it's a good time to do movement meditation. So if you go for a walk, what are your feet doing? What's the breath doing? Washing your dishes, some Tai Chi or Qigong, swimming, you know, something where you're just kind of present and with the movement, as a way to be fully present versus trying to have no thoughts and sit still. And moon bathe, I would highly recommend getting out under the sky whenever you can, or if it's cold, sit inside by the window with the lights off and let the moon's light touch you. We actually have receptors in all the cells of our skin that are picking up daylight, blue light, darkness, skylight, that's actually sending messages to our whole body to operate our circadian system and our endocrine system, which is basically sleep and digestion and hormones. Isn't that amazing? By just letting like moonlight touch your skin, you're helping to support your circadian rhythms. It just still boggles me. You know, go on full moon hikes in the summer, sit outside bundled up with some hot cocoa with the full moon or by the window. And just also really observe how the light changes at night as the moon's light gets brighter. You know, like last night we walked home along the beach and I could see everything, while 2 weeks ago it was so dark, you know, I was stepping on things and hurting myself. So socially, you know, each of these waxing and waning phases depend a lot on what's going on in your life and the seasons. So these are all generalizations, but it's an opportunity to notice what's true for you. So typically during the waxing phase, that's when most of us are more willing and ready to engage socially. Host a party or an event, get together with friends, be public, be seen, run all the errands, do all the things. And other people are often in a more expansive state and ready to connect. So it's often a lot easier, you know, and in personal relationships, say with your family or children or your partner, it can be a time to be planning a lot more activities together and more of a feeling togetherness while you're doing things together and you're out in the world. Maybe you go on vacation or you host a party, things like that. That's what we're doing, right? On a full moon. Planned it specifically for today. It wasn't random why we're all gathering today. Yes. And in terms of work, so I became aware of the moon cycles decades ago, where I had worked in a lot of office jobs where there wasn't flexibility, but I really did what I could to honor the moon cycles. So I learned that during the waxing phases, particularly the week before the full moon, I had so much energy. I could work 10-hour days and get so much done and do it well. I would have new ideas and creative solutions, and I would accomplish so much and have the energy for it. And so I often would just talk to my employers, and maybe I wouldn't say moon phase, but I would just say, I have cycles where I can work solid for a week and get more done than anyone in 2 months. And then days where like, I shouldn't be here, but if you really need to pay me to see me sitting slumped over in the chair, you feel like, okay, that's fine, but let me come in late and take a long lunch break and leave early and know it all balances out. And oftentimes we actually have more flexibility than we think. So you might notice this too with if you work from home, or maybe you are taking care of children or you're a caregiver, that this is the chance to get all the things done. It's also a good time to launch. Like if you need to market something or announce something, this is the time for it to be seen in the world, to do meetings with and collaborations, or go on interviews where, you know, where you're more ready to be seen and you'll be more energized. And how is this all making sense? You can all like give me a little thumbs up or type something. Yeah. And so in terms of food, I'm not going to really give specific food recommendations, because the more I sink into it, the seasonal cycles are more important than the moon cycles when it comes to food. Because each season provides a specific harvest. But indigenous cultures and permaculture are very aligned to planting specific seeds at the new moon or the full moon, and then harvesting specific things at the new moon or the full moon. And not only does that change the medicinal qualities of the herb or the food, like it can even be measured under a microscope, but you can taste it. The plants are a lot more full and juicy. And So it's actually like very solid evidence that it makes a big difference. So in terms of food, we're getting energy from the moon and from nature to have more energy. So we don't often need as much food during this time. So it can be a good time to cleanse because it's usually easier to cleanse at this time. And that can be like a khichdi cleanse, or if it's the summer and you're feeling really good, it can be more green juices and green smoothies. Yeah, and you still want to eat because you don't want to get too ungrounded. So you still want to have 3 meals a day and not skip meals too much. And then it also can be a time where it's a lot easier and more helpful to do intermittent fasting, which a lot of you have probably heard of. It's popular now, but Ayurveda has been doing it for thousands of years, which is you have a dinner that's early in the evening and light, or even skip dinner if you can, and then go as long as you can till breakfast the next day, because breakfast is you're breaking your fast. And if you can have 12 to 16 hours from dinner until breakfast the next day, particularly during the full moon, you're going to give your digestive system a chance and your detox pathways a chance for healing and repair. And it's going to be a lot easier during the waxing phases. And it's also time to like put a little more magic into your food, more herbs and spices, try foods from other cultures, spend a little time on the presentation where you really like make your plate look like a beautiful, colorful mandala or a little artsy, or, you know, really go to a special restaurant or cook food with someone and really get a very full experience from your food and enjoyment from it. And if you do caffeine or sugar, this might be a time where it's going to make you even wackier. Like I did some coffee yesterday and I was a nutcase. My mom saw me. By the end of the day, I was like, I can't talk. So, you know, even when you know this stuff, you still do what's opposite. And so instead of feeling terrible about yourself, you're just like, oh, that's right. That's why I don't do that. Okay. Love and kindness, right? So in terms of physical movement and exercise, we all know how important it is to do movement. And if your body is dealing with things like I've gone through shoulder injuries and stuff where I couldn't move, is do what you can. And even simple movements like this, like I'm not even lifting weights right now or breaking a sweat, keeps your lymphatic system moving and your circulation, and it helps move sediment around the body. And it's going to be so helpful. So it doesn't have to even be traditional exercise. But during the waxing phase is typically a time when we have more energy to like go to the next level, try the new yoga pose, lift a little heavier weights, start the new program, go on a long hike. You know, for example, the last new moon, my sweetie and I did this big hike and I could barely crawl up the mountain, but I know that if we were to go today, no problem. I could do it. So this is the time to really push towards new goals, new times, new weights, start something new. You're going to have the support for it. In terms of sleep, it can be normal to be a little more restless during the night, especially as the moon gets full. For me, it starts 3 to 4 days before, and I used to panic. Oh my God, I'm not sleeping again. I have insomnia. There's something wrong. I have all these issues, until I started realizing it's just the moon. And the moon would give me enough energy during the day that I could handle it. So if you tend to sleep really well, but you just periodically have a few days of sleeplessness, know that it's probably just the moon phase and completely normal. But of course, I know some people, and I work with clients like this all the time, who struggle with sleep issues constantly. So that's a different issue. It's not, the mood would have an influence, but not be the main reason. So some things to do to support sleep during the full moon time is to don't burn the candle at both ends. It can be so tempting to want to like stay up late with the party or doing the things or reading the book or the movies, and then you feel too tired. So still try to have a decent bedtime by 10 o'clock or so. And ways to support that is to turn off your screens. Don't look at your device or your TV or your computer. The blue light, and I won't go into all of it. And also try to have the lights dim in the house. So if you're cleaning up after dinner or you're doing things, you're brushing your teeth, try to have everything be pretty dim. And this will help your body produce more melatonin so that you'll get a little sleepier. Because when we add electricity and screens onto a full moon, it's a recipe for being completely wired and really distorted. And to just know that before electricity, when it was the full moon, everyone was out together. It's when the ceremonies and the drum circles and the story time and the gatherings all happened, was on the full moon. We were out. So it is also normal to be up and awake and out and about. But if sleep is really super important for you, then get an eye mask and make sure you have eye of the moon's light. And then I wanted to mention the menstrual cycle. So we've already been talking about how the full moon is associated to ovulation. So we have that new moon, that's the bleeding time. And as the phases start to expand, the body's producing more progesterone until we get to the full moon. And it's like the lining of the womb is completely full and ready for birth, right? And so it's very common that our cycle, especially as you start paying attention to the night sky and the moon and connecting mentally and eternally and visually, your cycle might start to shift, and to not be alarmed. If all of a sudden your cycle is short or long or heavy or strange in some way, it's those hormones swinging, and it can take a few months. And if it doesn't shift or change, I've had years where I was ovulating on the new moon and menstruating on the full moon. That is also totally fine. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong or that you have to try to change it. But just notice, what does your cycle do with the moon? And how does that associate with what you feel and what you need? And, for those of us who are not menstruating anymore, our menstrual cycle kind of gave us a natural time, a natural inclination to go inward. And it's so common. Most women don't want to be out and about. They just want to be home alone. And so if you're not menstruating anymore, to still make sure you give yourself a few days every month of that kind of internal rest too. And then it's a great time to take baths with the waxing moon, particularly cleansing baths like an Epsom salt bath or eucalyptus, or do a body scrub. You can take salt and olive oil or salt and sesame oil or sugar and honey and give yourself a nice, really yummy scrub, or use a lymphatic brush to really cleanse out, or do a sauna where you can just sweat it out, like a dry sauna or a wet sauna. So those are some of the main tools. I didn't break them up into the 8 phases because I didn't want it to be complicated. And it's really important that we're all learning to listen to ourselves, because we're our own inner authority. And it does change a little bit every month, based on the season, what's going on in your life, what signs everything is in. So use this as a launch board to get really tuned in to what you need. And all you do is you just ask yourself, like, how do I feel right now? What do I need? What do I want? Okay, I'm going to go try it and see how that makes me feel. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you so much, Tauna. Thank you for that yummy. I feel, when I hear you talking, I can feel the vibration of self-care, which is such a nourishing vibration. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So how about we all take a bathroom break and just take care of ourselves for a few minutes, come back if you want to stretch. I might just use the bathroom and then do some stretching. We can do some stretching together for a minute or two, and then let's continue. So
yeah, should we say, sorry,
no, go ahead.
Should we say 5 minutes?
Let's do
5
5 minutes.
So that would be, my clock says 33 minutes after the hour. I think everyone's in different time zones. So that would be at 38 minutes after the
30
hour.
We'll
Okay.
start.
See ya.
Oh, yay, we have a timer. Thank you. That's wonderful. Hmm. So we just have about a half minute left, and I'm just doing some stretching. If anyone wants to join me, just shaking out legs, stretching my arms. So good. So good. All right. And we are back. Yay. Welcome back, everyone. We are beginning. Welcome to part 2. Phase 2. So let's anchor ourselves back. Where are we? We are at the full moon. Let's come into the full moon. So astrologically speaking, and this will resonate exactly with what Tauna brought us to, is when we think of the full moon, that is the gift. We call it the gift. So that's when in the month, in the lunar month, we started with an intention at the new moon. Then there was a challenge or a test at the first quarter. And at the full moon, provided we've kept going and broken through that challenge or test of the first quarter, at the full moon, we get some kind of a gift, something visible in the world that is a gift of what, of what we've been working towards energetically. So, it might be a gathering, or it might be, a beautiful weekend with your partner or your child or your, whatever, or finally you give that speech that you've been working on or whatever it is, right? So we get some kind of a visible manifest gift. We get to see the results of something we've been working on, not only in this past 2 weeks, but also it could be something you've started anywhere in the last 18 months, so year and a half. And now this takes us to phase 5, which is the 3.5 days from the full moon's exactness to, and then 3.5 days after that. So the energy of that time is an interesting one because we're still fully in the light, right? The moon looks full for about 3 nights, but we're already starting to wane. So what does that feel like? We're still in the light. We're still connected to human beings. We're still very relational, but we're waning. We start to feel that downward turn. I remember a conference I was at, it was actually a school reunion, and it was 4 days long. Everyone was camping. The kind of, the second day of the reunion, the first and second days were like, on the second day was the full moon. The first day was just everyone so happy to see each other, outpouring love. The second day was like the crescendo. And on the third day, it hit that we were going to have to say goodbye. And that's the energy of the waning phases. Even when you're still in the light and exalted from everything, you're already getting the message deep inside that you're going to have to say goodbye. So now, someone who is born under this new moon phase, we call it the human being. And this is Stephen Forrest's terminology, which I love. He's an evolutionary astrologer. And the human being, it's really called that because this is where we really engage with our creation. So we've created it. In the life cycle, it's the phase where we have already put into motion our visions, right? We have the marriage, if we wanted a marriage. I'm thinking right now of a very orthodox life, but that's not how I think of life in general. This is just a very kind of basic example. We've married our partner, we've had the kids, the number of kids that that we're gonna have. We have the career, everything's kind of put in place, it's visible, it's set in motion what our life is kind of, the bulk of it is gonna look like. And now we have to deal with it, right? That phase 5 is about, now it's time to deal with our creation. It's not any longer about the excitement of creating it and going toward it. It's about, okay, now I have a child. Now I have to do the daily tasks of packing the lunchbox, of, do they have the coat that's right for the season? And, nurturing your partnership and having the difficult conversations at work, etc. So these people, this is the culmination of what it is to be human in a way. It's like going through the gamut of emotions, because we all know that, our dream was our dream, but the actual act of living our dream is not just roses all the time, right? It's everything. And that's what this phase is about. It's about becoming really real with life and how it contains all of it. And so these people, they have a real kind of groundedness about them, and they're really the realists of the chart, because they know that everybody experiences trials and tribulations and joy. So they're the kind of person that if you go to them and tell them about your sorrow and the pain in your heart, they will empathize with you. They will really be able to meet you there. They won't look at you like, why aren't you happy all the time? Or why aren't you just like having, why aren't you on positive vibrations all the time? They're going to actually, meet you there. They're very nurturing to the people around them, and even to people they don't know. And there's a lot of understanding of just the dynamics, that life is about dynamics and that it's complex. Relationships are complex. Francis Ford Coppola, who made The Godfather, was born under this moon phase. And of course, those movies are all about these dynamics of the family, right? It's like the family. And so it's just very interesting. Michael Jackson, who had a lot of family things, and of course so many siblings, and so much of his life was about the family and the complexities there, was born under this phase. Now let's talk about the shadow. So the shadow of this phase is the feeling of entrapment in your life, right? So even though we create our lives, I bet we all know the feeling of, how did I get here? How did I get here? Surrounded by all of these responsibilities, and wouldn't it be nice to just go on vacation, or whatever that feeling is, get away from it all. But that feeling of entrapment, a feeling of stuckness or indecision or stasis, not being able to get out of situations because you feel paralyzed inside of them. Now, what is the evolutionary intention for being born under this phase? So the assumption is that one probably created a very similar set of circumstances in a past life, but then they were unable to resolve them. They were unable to resolve that circumstance. And so they're basically recreating the same kinds of dynamics in this lifetime so that they have another crack at the same riddle, take another crack at the same issue, answering the same questions. So that's phase 5. We're starting to feel the waning energy. And now we move to phase 6, which is the waning gibbous. Most of these phases are represented in this class. So this one definitely is. The waning gibbous is now we're really waning. We're still in the light. We're still relational. We're still relating with people, very much in the mix. But now something starts to shift. And that something is our attention, which was previously on my creation, my vision, is now turning toward, actually, there's more to life than me and my egocentric creation. And I'm not using that word negatively, right? There's a place for that. But then there's also this phase where we actually need to chip away. We need to chip away at, at some egocentricity that may have gotten a bit crystallized. So what we start to see is like, okay, I've created this thing, and we all experience this at this phase of the moon, every lunar cycle. And it's like these 3.5 day period where it's not about us anymore. It's not about our vision. It's about, okay, I've created this. Now what can I do? How can it serve others? How can it serve others? People that are born under this moon phase are very, they're here to devote themselves to something greater than themselves. Mother Teresa was born under this moon phase. And they're often called the shaman. because they start to be really psychic. They start to be able to like download information and use it to help others. They can actually work with people around death and dying and other taboo subjects. So they can be excellent death doulas. They can be, shamans, literally. They can, be hospice workers. They can help people in times of crisis. They can have a strong attunement to the wisdom of like native peoples and, that kind of indigenous quality. They can really resonate with that. They can have very mature perspectives. And, who else was born under this moon phase? Carl Jung, which is really interesting. He was all about looking at the unconscious or the subconscious mind. We're talking about more taboo territory, death, the unconscious. Now, let's talk about the shadow. So people that were born under this phase can have a shadow of abuse, or even being a little bit, the extreme word would be like sadistic, but abuse, if you think about it, is really like an unhealthy form of engagement. They're still very engaged, right? But it's like too much engagement or engagement in the wrong way. They want to engage, but all those dark energies, which ideally would be used to actually midwife people through crises and difficult periods, they're distorted and they're put into, actually like making other people suffer. So this is really an intense shadow side. And why someone would want to be born under this moon phase it's actually really simple, because they're really here to pay their karmic debts, is the understanding, is that they have some kind of, something to repay. So they're here to do that. And taking on selfless action is very, very adaptive and evolutionarily positive for them. Now we move to phase 7. And phase 7 is a really interesting and pivotal one, because now we're moving out of the right half of the moon cycle and into the dark half, back into the darkness. And this is the last quarter. Now at the last quarter, at the first quarter we had a test. At the last quarter we have an integration. We had our creation, we made it visible in the world, and now it's time to integrate it back into the soil of that which is infinite about us, that which will exit this life and remain constant, enter another life, or go on with its journey in whatever way, but we integrate it into who we are, so that lesson was not for naught. It actually gets to go on with us on our journey. So this person born under this phase is really interesting, because now that we're in the dark again, we're moving further away from relationship and humanity. We're moving back towards source, but it's not coming from source like the new moon. It's going back to source. So there's a feeling of smelling home again. There's a feeling of sweet sorrow, a feeling of enjoying solitude. These people, their lives are really about endings a lot of the time. And these are the people where we start to get into the territory of people can really think that they're failures, right? Because they have a lot of endings in their lives. Pema Chodron was born under this phase. And she, if you know a little bit about her story, she had 2 divorces. And, she really self-flagellated about that, because, it was like, again, what am I doing wrong? How am I failing? And then when I read her story and read about her moon phase, I thought, she's an incredible success. She's tying up loose ends with people karmically. And once she did that, then she was freed up to do her dharma, which has become this incredible teacher that has touched so many lives. So that quality can happen. People can have romantic tragedy in their lives. And it's important to look at them and to realize that romantic tragedy is not necessarily tragic. It can be this very positive thing of people tying up loose ends. These people can also be incredible artists, and they can make art. They're not making art for any kind of acclaim. They're making art because they need to get what's in here out there. They need to process it. They need to they need to just like get it out. And I remember seeing this incredible webinar about a woman who was like 70, but she had a childhood with a lot of sexual abuse and difficult things. And she started making this art in her 70s. And it was so profoundly amazing. And it was all about the unconscious. And it was like, you know, she was able to touch so many lives, but not even because that's why she did it. She did it because she needed to for herself. So these are the kinds of artists that these people can become. This lifetime for these people is really about jettisoning their baggage. You know, what about the shadow in this phase? The shadow in this phase could be, it's very much akin, if you think of the life cycle, to the shadow that starts to become possible as we get closer to old age, which is the shadows of like, what's the point? Resignation, right? It's like, well, I've already lived most of my life. What's the point? What's the point of, you know, having, you know, waking up in the morning and living this day properly and relating to people properly and all these things. So those kind of those demons of resignation can get stronger and stronger as we move toward the new moon on the waxing side of the cycle. And why would someone want to be born into this phase? Well, usually it's because they're nearing the end of a certain series of incarnations, and they really have this pressure to finish things. So it's pretty straightforward. They have a pressure to finish things. It's important for them to have that renewed sense of commitment and to not give in to the resignation. It's important for them to remember that finishing gracefully is just as important as starting gracefully. And in fact, even more important in a way, because it's harder to finish gracefully. And many cultures don't do endings well. It's also very important for them to stop judging others and themselves, to really get over any judgment and to grow their wisdom in that way. And now we come to phase 8, the waning crescent. So before I go there, of course, all of us have that phase, the 3.5 days in every month, where we are experiencing that last quarter feeling that it's time to tie up loose ends. And one thing that, you know, I've been thinking about is how we, you know, if we were only to take this opportunity every month to ask ourselves, okay, what are the loose ends? What dynamics have I had with people where I might want to apologize and have a little more humility, where I want to maybe hash out or clarify something that happened, you know, and just make sure that we're clean in that area. I know for myself, it's so easy to just leave it and think that it'll resolve when it's time to resolve. And every month we actually get this explicit opportunity to sorry, I just got a message, to actually tie up those loose ends in concert with the energetics of life. Sorry, I just need to get back to this here. Okay, so let's just do it. Phase 8, the last phase, the waning crescent. And this is where we're going back to the source. And at this point, the veil between the worlds gets very thin. So these people born under this, well, let's just talk about the energetics. The veil gets very thin, and we actually have an opportunity to have more messages through dreams or apparitions or visions of some kind. This is a wonderful time to meditate and invite those messages, because the veil is thinner between the worlds. This is that time when the moon just wanes down to a sliver and doesn't rise until very late in the night, and then it's just invisible entirely. So this is about the descent into the heart of all mysteries. This is about going back to source. And these people born under this phase, they have a quality of them that they're a little bit, they don't really care. They're a bit indifferent to all of the baubles and jewels of life. That's not why they're here. And in fact, this is the moon phase that my father was born under, circling back to the beginning. And these people are incredibly mystical. They can be our wise elders. And I wish that we had more, but I hope for the future we carve more of a space for that in our communities. These people have surrendered to the calling of the mystical. And, you know, for them, the question of the meaning of life and the nature of reality is not just like this philosophical question out there. It's actually why they live. It's present with them every day. Now, the shadow of this is losing their grip on reality. So it can descend into madness, or it can descend into some, you know, they can actually project some pretty wackadoodle things out into the world because they feel these energies, but they're not anchored. If they're not anchored in a strong spiritual discipline or something to structure them, they can become like Jim Jones, you know, the person that, you know, had that cult where everyone committed suicide together, you know, because it's like they are so taken in by these visions, but they don't have something anchoring them. They can feel really alienated from the world. Of course, Jim Jones was an extreme example. Now, the evolutionary intention, why would someone want to be born into this phase? Well, it's a really important one. Someone who is born in this phase is ready to go on to the next thing, and all the cards are on the table. It's a lot of money that they're betting this time around, because it's like, okay, divine, take me, you know, do what you want with me. I'm completely yours. And, you know, and so the risk is really huge, you know, the risk to become a little mad or lose your bearings entirely. It's a big risk, but that's because the reward is also just as big on the other side. As Stephen Forrest says, there's no greater launching pad for enlightenment than being born under this moon phase. So these people will meet strong emotions, dark emotions with no filter. They'll just meet them head on, you know, so they have very intense lives. If you know someone like this, there's a lot of reverence there and respect, because they are going to be able to teach us so much if they stay anchored to their core. In a beautiful way, Frida Kahlo was born under this phase, and she famously, I mean, she obviously brought so much to our world in the form of gifts of the mystical. And then she famously wrote in her note, you know, take it how you will, but you know, if you can see the grain of beauty in this. In her suicide note, she wrote, you know, something like, I'm paraphrasing, it's been a wild ride. I hope to never come back. So that was her relationship to this moon phase. And that is the waning phase, the waning half of the cycle. And with that, I give it over to Tauna, who will enrich this with the treasure chest of tools.
Thank you, Katya. That was such a download of knowledge. And what I love about it is it helps me accept so much more of who I am and other people around me. It's like, if I'm the mystical wanderer, the shaman, why should I wish I were the crusader? Or if I'm the crusader, I might be getting feedback from some people, I should be more quiet and demure, you know? So this gives us all a lot of allowance too. And then the beauty with the moon phases is we all get to experience each phase a little bit through the moon. And so with the waning self-care, that's what we're stepping into for the next 2 weeks, because the moon is full, and then it's going to start getting darker and darker slowly. So we've all had that experience, and you can reflect back the last 2 weeks where you've been at, how you've been feeling, what you've been doing, how you feel today. And tomorrow, it's like you've been ovulating and you start to shift to the second phase of your cycle, and the progesterone drops, and all of a sudden it feels like you're a little dimmer. You're like, I can always know when I've stopped ovulating. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not as bright and shiny. Okay. And now I know it's normal versus I got to get the shine back. So with the waning self-care, typically what's needed is some insulation, some ground, some protection, some support. And so Katya already shared a little bit with some of the last 2 cycles about how it's good to be focusing on loose ends and relationships that maybe something needs to be said, feel those strong emotions. And the 6 senses meditation, which you're also getting as a bonus, is one way to help feel emotions as sensations. So it isn't an overwhelming or sad or dramatic experience. It's very gentle and nourishing. And so it's a good time to use something like EFT, emotional freedom tapping technique, or somatic experiencing, or write about like what are the old habits you're wanting to drop and let go of? What are the negative self-talk? And just remember that sadness and fear and anger aren't negative. Negative self-talk is the stories we tell about those things. So in terms of meditation, this is when it might be a lot easier and perhaps even yummy to be very quiet and still and inward. You can light a candle, or like Katya, she has her fireplace going, and sit in the dark and just watch the flame and watch your breath. That can be a beautiful thing to do. And to also stargaze. In Ayurveda, they say that looking at the moon and looking at the stars is actual medicine. It's actually recommended as a treatment, and I often recommend it to clients going through certain things. And so take that moment through the window of your car or your house if it's cold, or go outside and just see how the world gets dark and the stars brighten up. Because as I said before, with our skin, our cells on our skin are photosensitive. As you immerse yourself in that darkness, you're supporting your melatonin production and your own circadian rhythms and your endocrine system and your hormones. And basically, it's just really magical to like gaze at the stars. And if you live somewhere where it's hard to see the stars, periodically drive somewhere with a little thermos and a blanket, and get away from the city and see the stars. I know we've all had experience where we've seen certain places and you're just like, wow, it's such medicine. Okay, I won't go into that too much. Socially, many of us at this time start feeling like we don't want to be around as many people, where suddenly being in a crowd might feel more stimulating or more overwhelming. People might be more annoying. Your partner, your coworker, your kids might be more annoying, grate on you, the way they slurp their cereal or whatever. You might need noise to be not so loud around you. I always have earplugs in my purse so that if I'm caught somewhere, I can put earplugs in. And even at home, I put earplugs in sometimes. And it can be a time to just plan ahead sometimes. Often around the new moon, I won't do anything social. Like if someone wants to get together with me, I'll say, well, how about the following week? Or if we do get together, to have it be a quiet activity. Like, well, why don't you just come over and we'll watch a movie and paint our toenails, or let's go to the art museum, or let's just do a quiet walk in the woods, go to a bookstore, right? It can be whatever appeals to you, but something a little quiet and insulated. And in terms of friendships and partnerships and family ships, allow each other a little space and take it for yourself. This is an important time to just clear the slate, to let go. Go inward. What do I want? What do I need? And in terms of work, this can be a great time, especially as the moon gets new, to try to advocate for yourself to come in late or leave early or take a long lunch break, take a day off, work a little less. Try to do activities or tasks that you can just do something kind of simple like some data entry. It's a good time to refine and streamline systems and to delegate, like let go. What am I doing too much of that doesn't really have to be done? How can I make this easier? What can I slough off? It's a good time to really practice your boundaries, to say no. Also socially too, in relationships, to just say no, this isn't working for me, I need this. And in terms of food, often it's a good time to make sure you're getting nourished and grounded. So to eat really simple food, so it's not too stimulating, not too exciting. Focus more on like soups and stews and casseroles and root vegetables, things that are like the new moon, grounded and inward, nuts and seeds, more solid, dense foods. If it's the summer and you're feeling really hot, you know, some juices and salads are fine, but you might find in the winter you really want to go for things that are just like the new moon, just a little more condensed. And definitely don't skip the meals at this time or try to fast. Cleansing can often be a little harder unless you're doing something like khichdi, which is rice and beans. You're getting carbs and protein, or maybe you're doing a soup cleanse, right? So it's not like a cleanse, it's more just like clean eating. And you might typically have more cravings. Like this is usually when I have a lot of cravings for simple carbs, usually like tater tots and bread and pizza and chocolate and caffeine and coffee. And it's so tempting to have some of these foods to give us the energy to push through so we can be the bright, shiny, fast, productive worker, or bright, shiny, sexy woman. You know, we have so many messages that you gotta be produced and be big and go and manifest and have it all and be it all. And so then we're like, I should have some caffeine so I can do that. Or maybe if I had a little chocolate, instead of like, you know what? It's the new moon. And so Katya and I were working on this class together during the new moon, and neither of us were really able to get out of bed or do anything we said we were going to accomplish, and going out in the world just was so painful. And it was just such a good reminder, like, honor it, you know. And sometimes we can't, right? You still have to go to a big event. It's someone's wedding, or it's something for work, or your kids need you, or whatever. So just keep returning to your breath and try to reduce stimulation in other ways, like use calming music, use earplugs, take moments of quiet for yourself to just resettle. That'll help you get through those periods where you can't take the time for yourself, because we always can. It happens. In terms of physical movement, this often isn't a time to push for new goals or new achievements or start a new workout regime. Instead, it's a time to do things that are gentle and flowing, to still keep you moving, but go for strolls and walks, do some dance you really enjoy, do gentle yoga like laying on the floor yoga or slow yoga. If you really are someone who lifts weights, don't try to lift more weights or, you know, compete with yourself or reach a new goal. Just think of like a soft and flowy and gentle and nourishing kind of movement. And in terms of sleep, really take this opportunity to catch up on sleep, because nature is going to be supporting your sleep. So really try to get to bed by 9:30 or 10. Have the lights dim an hour or two before bed, or even if you can do this after sunset. So in the winter, that might mean 4 or 5 hours of darkness before bed, where you have just dim lights, like your salt lamp, can you see mine? Or candles or dim lights. It's going to give you so much melatonin. You're going to have this deep, long sleep, and it's deeply nourishing. So to really be mindful of your screens meaning your phone, your TV, your computer, and use this time. And then our menstrual cycle is often really associated with the bleeding time. So you can think about how you feel if you're a woman with a menstrual cycle or who has had one. Often there's just a feeling of a need to just be really inward and quiet and slow. And if we aren't, sometimes that might be when we're really irritated and fed up with everything and everyone in our life. And we get more irritable or anxious or weepy. But if we can really retreat, then we're often, it can be a magical time. So it's the same with the new moon. If you're feeling like people are bothering you and it's all too much and you can't do it and you can't stand it, that's a signal of, aha, I need to retreat. And there are ways to retreat. It can be just like curling up with Netflix and popcorn, right? That's, you know, sometimes we just need to check out and numb out. And also it can be very healing to go for very therapeutic self-care where you're journaling, you're in the bathtub, you know, you're reflecting, you're connecting to nature, connecting to your furry friends, your dogs and cats, your loved ones, but you know, something that's like deeply healing. Or you're doing some art or writing or reading something really delicious. And in Ayurveda, there's a practice called Abhyanga, which is self-massage, where you take warm oil and you just massage your circles on your joints and then long strokes on your arms and your legs, on the flat places, circles on the joints. And you just put a nice thin coating of oil on you. You can do this before a shower, so then it soaks in during the shower and doesn't get on your pajamas or your clothes. Or you can do it after a shower. And
Tauna, we can't hear you. You're muted.
did that just happen?
That happened at probably the beginning of the sentence you just were saying.
Okay, good. Didn't happen a long time ago.
No.
So with the self-massage, it's like putting on a warm sweater on a chilly night or a raincoat on a rainy day. It's like a protection or buffer for your nervous system. So particularly if you're feeling a little easily overstimulated or overwhelmed, frazzled, ungrounded, doing that self-massage, and even right now as we're talking, you can do it through your clothes, you know, without any oil. You know, skin to skin, this is going to produce oxytocin. It's going to get your lymphatic system and detox pathways going. It's calming, it's grounding, it's self-loving, super nourishing. And then if you like to take baths, the new moon is a good time to take baths that are a little more warming and nourishing, like put some oats in your bath or some coconut oil or coconut milk, a little sesame oil, things that are just calming and gentle and warm and soothing. Yeah. And there is a breathing technique I'd love to share with you real quick that we can do together. And what you do is, it's called Brahmari breath, and it immediately helps you go deeply inside and quiets the mind. And you usually only need to do 4 or 5 breaths, so it's not like something you have to do for 20 minutes, just for like 10 seconds. So literally 10 seconds is you just take your thumbs and you cover your ear flaps. You kind of block your ears. And then just let your fingertips rest gently on your eyelids and your eyebrows. And maybe your pinkies just kind of land on your cheek real gentle. And then you can just watch me for 1 breath and then follow me. You're just going to breathe in through your nose. And then as you exhale, you're going to hum in the back of the throat. And you want to get to find that point in the back of your throat where it's humming and it's like there's a little buzzing of a bee in your head, and you're kind of feeling your jaw and your head vibrate just a little bit. It's very calming. So we'll breathe in together and exhale while humming. And inhale. Let the exhale go as long as you comfortably can. Inhale. And exhale with your mouth closed and just humming. And one more, and just keep experimenting. You can release your hands, keep your eyes closed, let your breath return to normal. And then just look at the floor. Just slowly look around. Take your time. I noticed for me, like we just heard a lot of words, right? A lot of knowledge. And I just find that Brahmari breath so cleansing and integrating. Yeah.
Beautiful. Ah, thank you, Tauna. You know, I never liked the moon, the waning part of the moon, because I am a waxing crescent, and typically the moon phase that we're born under is the moon phase that we're going to feel more comfortable in, and its opposite is going to be where we feel uncomfortable. And it's always an opportunity for integration, right? So when I listen to you speak about the waning moon phases and the Ayurvedic practices for them, I start to look forward to that, because even though it's very foreign to me, I start to see this whole new possibility of meeting that with compassion, and meeting that with like, oh, this is what it's been offering me all this time. And because of my discomfort and awkwardness, I've really not given myself the chance to enjoy it and get the benefits. So this is such a, just a beautiful invitation. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I had to learn these skills too.
Yes. So, gosh, let's just check in here, Tauna, for a moment. So we are kind of going over our timeline that we originally expected, which is normal for these webinars. And so our next kind of plan was to talk about, or to do a little meditation together. So should we do that and then just have the chat, just kind of chat instead of the breakout rooms? Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think so. And then how are people doing on timing? Do people want to stay a little longer, or do you need to go? You can just maybe send us a little chat or
Yes.
the thumbs up, what you're needing. We know we all have lives, so we might need to move on to the next thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Happy to stay longer. That's Heather. Thank you. Yeah. We
Someone else
have,
needs to leave. Okay.
yep. And then Kirsten's good to stay.
So for those of you who need to go, you're going to get an email from us that tells you how to access your bonuses. And I'll just talk about it real quick now. You're going to get the PDF that has your waxing and self-care tools, and then your moon tracking calendar, which the PDF does explain all of it here. This is 6 months right here, where you it starts with the new moon and goes to the full and the waxing. It doesn't start on a traditional day 1 of the month or Monday through Friday. And there's just enough room for you to record your overall mood or feeling for the day, particularly the one that you can't really say is a particular event or situation, but there's just this kind of like overarching mood you can't shake. That's often the influence of the moon. And I have a suggested key with different symbols, like if you're sleeping or not, you feel introverted or extroverted, you feel anxious, you feel calm, you feel sad or happy. And then you would just write your symbol down. And then after a few months, you can start scanning down like, oh, how do I feel on the full moon? Oh, wow, check it out. I'm like super extroverted and I'm not sleeping and I'm happy. And oh, wow, on that new moon, I'm irritable and anxious. And it gets really interesting. And then as your habits shift, let's say you start getting better at the waxing and waning self-care, you might find that maybe you're still introverted or extroverted, but maybe the irritableness or anxiousness isn't there as much because you're more aligning and integrated with that expanding and contracting phase. And then the next, we're going to do a 6 senses meditation together, which will help you cultivate your intuition and also really kind of become more embodied and quiet and connect to yourself and your surroundings. And you're going to get an audio meditation of that too. So you can download that. And then also Katya and I are each offering kind of like a bonus or special for those of you in the class who want to work with us. And you'll get that in the email, and it'll be in the program portal for Practice Better. So if you haven't yet logged on to Practice Better and seen a welcome module and then a place where the bonuses will appear, then you're going to want to find an email called How to Log In to Practice Better so you can access your bonuses through there. And I will write down here my email in case you're having a hard time accessing it, or you can just reply to the email that's sent to make sure you can access those bonuses. And yeah, so that's about it, I would say, for now, for those who need to go. Yeah.
And I also wrote in the chat box to everyone, but we will be doing a Q&A. And if you have to go, but you have a question, my thought is type it into the chat box. We'll answer it, and we will, so that you can actually listen to it when you hear the recording. So don't walk away with your question, put it in the chat box, and we will still answer it for you.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and you can fast forward through everything else you've already seen. So.
Yes. All right. So is everyone ready for the meditation? Remember, it's not a traditional meditation. You can even lay down, which I might encourage you since we've been sitting up and looking at each other for a while, and you can get comfortable. And it's only going to be about 11 minutes long, so it's actually going to be very brief. And you're going to hear some gongs, but I'm going to guide you through each sense. And basically, there's different ways to use this meditation, and you can also shorten it when you're out in the world. Like if you're waiting at the grocery store, you can just choose one of your senses to tune into or quickly scan all of them. But basically, our intuition is our sixth sense, and our five senses are sound, sight, smell, taste, sensation. All right, so let's see. Make sure you're comfortable. You can go ahead and begin. So first, I invite you to become aware of sound. What do you hear around you? While you're listening, you can keep breathing in through your nose and out through your nose. I invite you to really see, can you hear something different or hear it a little more deeper? Perhaps there's a sound outside you're noticing for the first time. Maybe you hear your own breath. Could you imagine sending your ears out a little farther to hear something even a little quieter, a little harder away, farther away? Keep remembering to breathe in through the nose and out. And the next one is smell. So as you breathe in, just notice what you smell. This one might seem a little elusive because our brain often stops registering a smell if it's been there for 20 minutes or more. But when you start paying attention, you'll be surprised what you can smell. Just really fill up your nostrils. Really drink the air in. You can even slowly and mindfully maybe bring some hair or something you're wearing, like your clothes, to your nose and smell that. Just stay open and curious. It's like listening to your intuition. It's, you're like, is that it? I don't know. Is there anything there? When you stick with it, you'll be surprised. You don't have to label what the smell is, just notice the experience of smelling. So next is physical sensation. So just become aware of what your body is touching right now, while you're sitting or laying down. Keep breathing in and out. You might notice where your clothes are touching your skin, your hair. Perhaps there's a breeze from a fan or the air or a heater. And then also notice the sensations inside your body. If there's any emotions, notice them as pure sensation, like heaviness or lightness, butterflies, tension, softness, warmth or cool. Notice the location. Is it like in your chest or your belly where there's a strong sensation? Notice your breath as sensation. And we'll move on to taste. So you can just become aware of your mouth and your tongue. You can even kind of roll your tongue around inside your mouth or swallow. When we don't have a food in our mouth, taste can feel abstract. And this is one of the ways we're bridging our ability to listen to our intuition and the subtleties of nature and our own needs. You can even open your mouth and breathe in through your mouth and out through your mouth slowly and see what you notice. Kind of rub your tongue around the roof of your mouth and your teeth. This is how we digest the world, right here in our little mouth. Now, while you're breathing, we're going to slowly open our eyes, very slow, and just look around the room, not necessarily at the video because that might be distracting. Just notice objects around you solely as shape and color, and light and dark. Like the way an artist might look at things, where it isn't a desk, it's a shape. And then when you look, you might think, oh, that's brown. But when you look closer, you're going to see white and blue and purple. Just notice light and dark coming in through the window or the lamps. As if you were a newborn baby who'd never seen any of this before. You were from another planet and you don't know what a couch is, but there's a shape over there, colors, textures. Keep breathing and just soak in color and shape and light and dark. Keep looking around, see things you've never seen before. Now we're going to bring it all together. So while you keep looking around, you can even find one thing and see all the different layers and the things you can see, but we'll add in the sound of my voice, sounds in the room. Take a deep breath in and notice what you smell and really feel your nostrils filling with air. Remember your body, go back to your body in the chair where you're laying down, the clothes. Sensations inside your body. And your taste, what are you tasting? So all together, seeing, feeling your body, listening, tasting, smelling. This is a very receptive state. Put your hand on your heart and just see, is there a little inner wisdom here for you right now? What do I need for this evening? What do I need? And just let a little visual, little sound, a little word come to you. Intuition speaks to us differently. Some of us will get a smell or we'll hear something. We'll see something out of the corner of our eye. We'll have a vision. We'll get a knowing in our body. This is how we can cultivate that. As we clear the clutter of our mind, we drop home into our body. And this is how you will know in coming days and months and years what you need in each moment. And allow yourself to be whatever you're being without trying to change it or be perfect or energized or superhero, whatever it is. Just like, this is me right now. This is how I feel. Here we are. So when you're ready, you can wiggle your fingers and toes and stretch if that feels good to you. Look around. If you feel inspired to share, you can type in the chat what you noticed, or if you think that's something you might do. I often will do it when I have just a minute. I'll quickly scan all the senses separately, like 2 breaths each, and then bring it all together. Or I'll choose just one, often physical sensation or sound. If I don't have a lot of time, like, you know, you're out somewhere, you're feeling overstimulated or overwhelmed or tired, is you can just take a break. Even while someone's talking to you, they won't have any clue what you're doing, but you can just be like, really listen or really feel or really smell. And it's a way to come home really quickly. And the more you do this, the more it'll really help you really discern what's your intuition versus random other thoughts or feelings. Yes, Tiffany says, great meditation. I will give this a try. I heard I need to rest. Yes. Yes.
I heard the same thing.
Me too.
Mm.
I think, you know, after the waxing cycle, the last 2 weeks, a lot of us are probably in a going, doing, building phase. And we're right at that point where it's like the moon was full last night. We're like, okay, we have 2 weeks of resting, more rest, moments of rest. Yes.
Yep, we're past the full moon now, and we have been, you know, all day. We've been on the other side of it. So even though we have a big full moon in the sky tonight, we're already in the waning. We're already in that. We've crossed over the hump. So, gosh, that was so beautiful. I really look forward to bringing that meditation in so many ways. And, you know, I've done that with my yoga teacher, just taught me how to do that, you know, for just like 30 seconds each sense or 1 minute each sense. But Tauna, I know you've done that for like 5 minutes for each sense. And so I'm really excited to actually lengthen and see, you know, what happens when I spend more time in that space. So now as we sort of go into the waning, the last waning phases of our time together today in this class, we'd love to just take a little bit of time to share, either using the chat box or if you'd like to unmute yourself and just share, you know, what feels alive for you right now. I know we're with this is new and it's not integrated yet, and that's fine. We're just inviting us to have some time where we can, you know, create a little conversation. So anything that feels alive for you from what we've done together here today, we invite you to put it in the chat or to unmute yourself. And Juana is bowing out now. And she says, great meditation. Thank you both. Bye, Juana. So much love
Bye,
to you. So good to have you.
you.
Thank you for being with us. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you don't feel comfortable sharing, that's fine. We would just invite you to take a moment, even with yourself or your journal, to really think about, like, what was the takeaway for you?
Absolutely. And I know a lot of our folks had to bow out, so there's just a small group of us now.
Yes. Well, I've kind of already gone over some of the next steps for you all to keep an eye out for an email for your bonuses, and to make sure you are having a username and password for Practice Better so you can log in and access that online program portal. And, you know, over the coming moons, just would invite you to be really looking at the night sky every night. You know, if it's out your window while you're driving, or go outside and really notice what the night is doing and how you feel and what you need. That's it. How do I feel right now? What do I need? And if you aren't sure, just see what message you get and go try it. You'll quickly see if it feels good or not.
Yeah, it's amazing what can happen when we start to align with nature more. And I think, it can be so easy, I know, for me to just lose contact with nature and not even realize it because I have so many tasks and life is just about this, checking the boxes. Did I do this? Did I do that? And so much of that happens indoors. And so for me, I frequently just get the message, Katya, just spend some time outside every day, even if it's 5 minutes. And that, that aligning with the rhythms of nature can just create such a groundedness and an inner confidence, I find that, and again, reconnecting us with that intuition and our North Star. So I completely second that. And then, gosh, the other thing I just wanted to invite all of us to do is if we have kids or significant others is to, we can so much just by learning this ourselves, by attuning ourselves, we can just be such a benefit and gift this, not by, imposing it on anyone, but just by being it and shining that light. Can also share it with a world that really, can benefit from this wisdom.
Yeah, and people don't have to know what you're up to. If someone wants to get together, you could be like, sure, come over and let's do facials, if they're wanting to go out and about. Like, you don't have to be like, because it's the new moon, unless it's someone, sometimes you don't want to explain yourself to certain people, or same with work, or relationships. Like if it's just too much to kind of talk about the moon, especially when it doesn't feel solid in you, then just make the suggestions or do what you need for yourself. And oftentimes, I can't tell you how many times I've said things like that to people, like at work or socially, to suggest something else, and they've been like, oh, actually, that sounds so much better.
Totally. So
Yeah.
true. So now I'd love to invite us to take our sacred object and hold it between our palms and just close your eyes for a moment. We're going to infuse our object now. So just gather within yourself everything that, not intellectually, just in your body, in your being, gather within yourself everything that has enriched you today from this time together. Just really feel it gathering inside you on the inhalations. And after, just take a few nice deep breaths, inhaling and gathering all that you would like to take with you, all the richness. And now after the next big inhalation, we're actually going to infuse our object with this. So I invite you to just open your hands a little and just blow all of this richness right into your object, infusing it with this wisdom and the depth. So take a deep breath in and blow it into your object. Just keeping your eyes closed for a moment, keep holding your sacred object. And my blessing is that may this object help you. May your relationship that you've just created with this object help you to remember. Life can be such a process of forgetting and remembering, and may this help you to remember. When you see it, when you feel it, may it help you to remember the wisdom of your inner being and what is possible when we connect. And slowly open your eyes. Ah, yes.
Feels supercharged.
Yes. Now that's your supercharged object. You can put it where you like. where it'll help you and serve you the most.
Mhm. Well, something that, yes, thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. So great to have you.
So something that's been brewing a little bit, Katya and I have talked about the last couple of days of how fun it would be to have a group for 30 days where every 3 days we connect on each phase of the moon and get the knowledge and the tools to align with the moon and the understanding, and then be in a group together where we can share what we're really feeling and what we're really needing. And it's a way to deeply integrate the phases of the moons and start that habit and connection and alignment. And so if that sounds interesting to you, just let us know. It's something that we're thinking about offering.
Yes.
So if you wanted to add anything to that, Katya.
Yeah, that sounds great. And anything, anything else that feels, like we just love to hear your feedback, and, whenever is right. If in a week or 2 weeks, it feels like, oh, now I know what I want to say, or, if you want to share something with us, then we're just so happy to hear from you. And Heather wrote, what a beautiful starting point for more deeply understanding my family and how we dance in life together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Jen, you wrote, looking forward to receiving the materials. So very grateful for the knowledge you both shared. Sending you lots of love. Sending you love too.
Yeah.
Tiffany says, yes, please. And Heather says, sounds so wonderful to the 30 days. I think it's going to be amazing because I've been very aligned with the moon for decades, but just the whole journey of Katya and I working so closely together on this during a whole moon cycle has been whole other layers. And to hear it from someone else and to also say it to someone who's completely receptive and is like, yes, of course, versus like, oh, the moon, who doesn't get it yet. So that's one reason why we're excited about it. I guess, was there anything else before we move into Q&A, Katya?
No, I think we can move. Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone has a question, feel free to unmute yourself and just say it or type it here in the Q&A.
Yep.
And if you're watching the recording and you have a question, you can just email it to me or Katya. And our emails are in the emails you've been getting and in the practice portal. But we'll go ahead and type it here for you just to make sure. And Katya, you can type yours. You can email us and make sure the right one of us. I'm more on the Ayurvedic end of things, and Katya's more on the astrological, even though she has a lot of the self-care Ayurvedic knowledge too. So we'll get your question answered.
Yes, and Juana asked a question before she left, and it was about each phase. And this is something that I'm so glad she asked, because I think it's a great clarification. She's asking how long each phase is, because it can be confusing how long a lunar month is. And it is 28 days approximately. It's not the same every month. So it's not an exact like that. Because, the moon is actually quite an interesting, it has quite an interesting ecliptic and quite an interesting journey around the earth. But it's about 28 days, and each phase is about 3.5 days. So it does add up. If it were 3 days, it wouldn't add up. It would just add up to 24, but it's about 3.5 days for each phase. And Heather asks, if a birth is induced, how does this affect one's moon phase? And this is such a beautiful question. So shall I just answer from that astrological perspective? Is that, this really gets into how one's whole chart is affected. If the birth is induced or a C-section, and that's really, really an interesting question that many astrologers have delved into. And what I will say, and what I've come to from a lot of meditation on this, as well as listening to my elders teach, is that it is the moment of birth is the moment of birth. So, everything, like nothing in the universe is unnatural, so nothing actually becomes like contrary to astrology. And, for whatever reason, that experience, from an astrological perspective, we co-create experiences together, and all of our souls come together to create certain experiences. So if a child comes in and their birth was induced, for whatever reason, the souls that were connected to that happening, that's what happened for a reason. And it had some kind of a benefit or a teaching or something there. And so from that standpoint, the birth time is the birth time, and not to complicate it more than that, really. Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. Yeah. And that's just my answer and what I've come to, and what
It resonates with me. That was kind of what my thought has been too, is that there's divine perfection in everything.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I love about both Ayurveda and astrology is that they're such big containers that everything falls under them. All of life falls under them. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much to those of you who are still with us. I know sometimes doing these kind of gatherings when it's next to a computer is so different than if we were all in a cozy room together. So thank you, and I hope you were able to make yourself comfortable and that you received some value. And it's been such a gift to create this course and to work with Katya and to think of the offering we're giving to all of you. So it's been a pure joy. And
Yes. Thank you so much for being here, and and for allowing us this time. We're co-creating it, and I echo that it's been such a gift to create this with Tauna, to co-create this together. And I just will say that deepening my own connection, even though I'm an astrologer, I've, worked with the moon so much from different angles, but this experience of deepening this into my life and actually starting to honor it has really, really allowed me so much more self-love, self-respect, and self-care. And there's a magic in it that I just want to invite you all into. So Heather says, thank you, dear wise women. What a blessing to be with you today. Much love. Much love to you as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And, everyone will get the recording, and we may do this again, and the 30 days. So if you feel like someone who may benefit, we'll definitely have offerings for them.
Yes. Have them contact Katya or I to get on the list for a future one. Yes, do that.
Awesome.
All right, well, take good care of yourselves. Just keep asking yourself, what do I feel? What do I need? And look at the night sky. And just love yourself completely as you are, because you are perfect as you are. And you don't need to be shiny or calm or bright or serious or anything other than who you are.
Absolutely. Aho.
Aho.
Take care, everyone.
All right, bye.
Sending blessings.